So we're getting closer to Halloween, and we have a few more reviews to do before then. So, for tonight's review, we are playing this, Monsters in My Pocket.
That's what she said!
I saw that coming.
That's what she said.
Never mind. Monsters in My Pocket was a Konami game released for the NES back in 1992. The game is based on the franchise of the same name that put out toy lines, cartoons,
Terrible! What are we gonna do? They're big, we're small.
board games, and comic books. In Asia, this game was actually hacked and modded into a Batman and Flash game. Why? I don't know. The game focuses on two of the main monsters, which the player can choose to play as, either the vampire or the monster. The main villain named Warlock uses a shrinking spell on all monsters that would oppose him, but eventually these shrunken monsters turn to his side except for the two protagonists. His spell miscasts, however, and ends up shrinking all monsters, including his henchmen who he has to send out to defeat Vampire and Monster. His henchmen include Spring-Heeled Jack, Bigfoot, Kraken, Gremlin, and Medusa, along with various monsters from different folklore and mythologies as the general enemies in the game. The heroes must escape the house they are staying at and fight their way through the upstairs part of the home, the kitchen, the street, into the sewer, later emerging at a construction site and making their way to a garden before fighting Warlock at Monster Mountain, although that's not entirely the end of the game. If you are aware of the comics that were out, the characters Hobgoblin and Gremlin are good monsters, while in the game they appear as villains. The remaining good monsters from the comics, like Werewolf, Vampiress, Golem, Swamp Beast, the Phantom of the Opera, Jotun Troll, Invisible Man, Dr. Jekyll, and Mummy, make no appearance whatsoever in the game, although the cover art for the game does show Werewolf. Now, it seems that Vampire and the monster have the same attack that does about the same damage. Neither have any sort of range attacks, just this slash melee attack that takes out enemies in a single hit. They both move, fight, and jump at the same rate, so really the only difference, it seems, is their sprite design. The graphics are what you would expect of an NES game. Not super glamorous, of course, but still pretty good to look at. The vampire, I mean, he looks like a vampire, and the monster, well, he looks like the monster, but a little too blue. The enemies are pretty diverse for the most part, and fairly original. I will say some of the sprites here do remind me of other characters from different games, like this hopping hunchback. He kind of reminds me of the one from Castlevania. And the witches, they kind of remind me of Magikoopas from Super Mario World. And of course, the axe-throwing goblins are kind of like the Hammer Brothers. Even Warlock here, the main bad guy, he looks like Guile. Or Gil. Gil? Well, whatever that guy's name is. The levels are pretty well designed for the most part, allowing you to scale up chairs to countertops and platforming across stacks of dishes and things you would generally find in a home, having to dodge the occasional hazard like burning stovetops and stuff like that. I also have no clue what these keys are for exactly. I don't know if they open anything, but they make pretty good weapons. Enemies appear in clusters sometimes and make things a little difficult to defend yourself, especially with you being unable to go backwards in the stage. Extra health is little to nowhere to be found half the time, so you have to be really careful. Even when you do die, you can respawn exactly where you left off, but unlike most games where you have a few seconds of immunity to attacks, you can take damage as you respawn and before you can even fight back. Jumping into boss fights is also just as stressful. There's often, I find, no transition into a boss fight from the rest of the level, and no dialogue about who or what is happening. You're just kind of tossed into it. At first, I wasn't sure what to think about this game, but now, after playing it some more, it's made a bigger impact on me. It's a pretty decent attempt to adapt a big toy franchise into a video game, with easy controls and some pretty creative sprite and level designs, which make it very appealing. While I do have some minor gripes about the clusters of enemies, the lack of health potions, and the fact there's no checkpoints, it still stands in my mind as a good game to play this Halloween season. Oh! What the?